Good morning everybody, I'm Steve and welcome to Green Side Up. Now it's tomato sowing time for me and it's for one of my first tomatoes, the Crimson Crush. I will sow other tomatoes at a later date, but I need to get these going now, and that's with very good reason, which I'll explain in a minute. Now there's going to be a whole slew of tomato videos coming up from various people saying do this, do that, do the other, which is fair enough. That's their ideal and the way they grow things. But I want to put a couple of points out there which I feel are very relevant and important. There is no point growing a tomato unless you can protect it all the way along to when it's in the ground or in its final planting place. Now, for instance, if you're going to plant them in the greenhouse or in a polytunnel where it's protected, you'll probably marginally get away with it. But you've got to really have the plants having an overnight temperature of 10 degrees. And I say overnight because that in general is the minimum temperatures in a day when the temperatures drop down. If it's dropping down to 5, 6, 7 degrees, what's going to happen is that tomato plant will stall. And what that means is it will still be alive and still growing, just very, very slowly. It's like it's had a kick in the teeth and it's suffering a little bit. And you really don't want your plants to stall. You want your plants to get away and thrive, and that way they grow better and they grow with more health and more vigour. If they do that, they're less susceptible to disease. So you get overall a healthier plant, a healthier growing plant, and a healthier harvest. And everything becomes less problematic with it. So anyway, I'm sowing my tomato seeds. Why? Because I'm a nutter, and because I've done this for a few years now. What I do is I'm sowing Crimson Crush now, and that's an early fruiting variety. And what I do is I can protect my plants. I've got this propagator here, this bench propagator, and my plants will stay in here until it's warm enough down the allotment within my protection scheme that I have going down there to look after them. So they'll always thrive and get away. And by into May, they can be anywhere up to 3 foot tall. But that's because I can protect them all the way and I'm looking after them all that way. So they start growing in May, and by June I have got side shoots I have taken off those plants growing in the ground, which are for my second crop. So these Crimson Crush are an early crop, and they'll start fruiting towards the end of June and into July and be finished, in sort of August. But by then, those side shoots that I've got grown up, that I've taken off those first plants, they're also fruiting. So I'm getting continued cropping throughout the season from 2 sets of plants. So I'm doubling my harvest for the one plant that I've started early. Now, I'm also going to grow a couple of other varieties, but I won't sow those for a couple of weeks yet. I'll grow them as normal. And for the majority of people, you don't really want to be sowing them until really into April, if I'm being perfectly honest. I just do this because I want to get the plants going, I want the side shoots off them, and I want them growing. And that gives me that double harvest, which I enjoy. So we're going to sow them and say, these are Crimson Crush, just in these little trays for my little windowsill propagator that I have in the kitchen there. And it takes 7 of these little trays, and I've got the little hats to go on it as well. These things. So I'll pop one of those on and leave it on the propagator, and then in a week or so I should have the seedlings up. I'll show you a little bit of footage of how I grew my tomatoes last year. These are tomato side shoots. I've just taken them off the plant and popped them straight into the soil, and I think it's time now because they're looking fairly healthy, time to dig them up and put them into proper pots. So I'm going to do that now. I'll just take them out for now, and then we'll go and pot them up elsewhere in this tunnel. So that's basically done. And just a little wetting don't want to wet plants too much at this time of the year. That's enough to get them going, and that'll go onto the propagator. Now, in saying there, probably towards the end of March, I'll sow some in a tray and I'll put them on the bench propagator out here. It should be warm enough out here by then. Now, when these plants come out, I'll prick them out into modules and I'll grow them on the bench propagator here. And then from modules they'll go into pots, and they'll stay in pots in there, and they can grow in this propagator probably about this tall, nearly 2 foot. And then I'll take them down to the allotments and they'll go into one of my hot boxes, which is a great big panelised box, sits on a bed in the middle of the polytunnel, so away from all the walls, and that's in the middle of the polytunnel as well, so it's double protected. Now, if a cold night is forecast between now and actual full planting out time, I can throw various layers of fleece over that so I can further protect that. Plus, they'll be sat in pots, in trays. If a frost is predicted, I can whip down, we've got a van, so I can whip down to the allotments in the van. It takes me 2 minutes to get there, pop them in the van, fetch them home, and I can put them in the back kitchen. So protect them for that night, take them back down with me to the allotments in the morning. So I've got that protection right the way through the growing time. And this is what you've got to think of before you go mad and start sowing tomatoes. And I know people will see me sowing tomatoes now and think, oh, I must get mine in, I must get my seeds out, I must get these going. Just hold your horses and think about it. First of all, get onto Google and Google last frost dates for your area. So last frost dates, Glasgow or Liverpool, whatever. Find out when it is, and then time your plants so that they're ready to go in the ground after those last frost dates, so that you can protect your plants all the way through growing. Ensure you've got somewhere to put your plants when they're growing up. There's no point having 20 or 30 tomato plants that are 2 foot tall. If you've got nowhere to put them, they're just going to die. So you want to be encouraging the growth all along by potting them on continually, keep them moving into new pots. You want to keep them healthy, you want to keep them above 10 degrees, and you want to keep them growing and be ready to go into the final position when they've outgrown that last pot that you potted them into. You don't want them to become pot bound. So look after them all the way along. Have a plan for how you're going to do it. And that's the best route for success that I can possibly give you. Right, so that's the first of my tomatoes sown for this year. I have another 3 or 4 varieties that I want to grow, and then I shall grow the side shoots from these plants on later in the year and grow those as well. So do plan out, do think, check out your last frost dates, get an idea of how long your plant will take to grow to a size where you want it to put it in the ground, and how long you're going to have to look after that plant at home, and have a plan in place before you actually sow the seeds and think about it. So majority of people, I mean, it used to be that May was the month that you sowed tomato seeds, and if you sowed in May, they would still catch up with all the other plants. I'm only sowing early because I want the side shoots of this, and I like to push the boundaries. Can go early if you want, but just have a plan in place to look after them between now and planting time. So that's it for this video. Look after yourselves, everyone. Stay safe, and I'll see you in a couple of days. Ta-ra now.